speaking of the guy that's leading in the Republican polls by 40, 50 points, that there was an audition for the B team or the C team over on Wednesday. I was gonna say over the weekend, but it hasn't been that long. On Wednesday, what was your take about that debate? Because it was a very odd exercise of nobody appearing presidential, because they all seem to be like have some collective understanding that this isn't any real exercise without the front runner being here. And I also found it odd that none of them really went after DeSantis at all.
Yeah, I mean, you suggested this was the C team, and I kind of think it's the C team too. You know, there's individual critiques you could make of each of the people on the stage, right? That like Ron DeSantis, for being someone who's supposed to be this like, you know, pugilistic fighter type, was actually quite passive and unimpressive and a little whiny every time he was questioning anything. Tim Scott, who I've seen in a variety of circumstances, who's usually kind of gregarious and good-natured on the stump, is like utterly listless on the stump, like sort of struggling to make his point. Vivek Ramaswamy is, you know, the worst possible like Model UN kid ever imaginable, placed on stage. And, you know, fast talking, but not really much there. I mean, you can kind of go down the list. But the thing that struck me the most was that the relative weakness of this field is, I think, actually a testament to how much Donald Trump's dominance really is papering over all of these like profound problems within Republican politics. And that there's an extent to which the unwillingness of Republican office holders and elites to break from Trump in any serious way reflects a kind of knowledge that like if Trump is gone, then we don't really have that much. And you can even hear that in the messaging on stage on Wednesday, right? Everyone kind of reverted to this almost 2012, 2013 vintage language about the debt and the military and all these things. And it just felt like completely disconnected from any actual problems or challenges facing the country. It was all sort of reheated rhetoric from a decade ago.
Yeah.
Exactly the kind of rhetoric that when Trump ran in 2015 and 2016, he kind of just like tossed off and was like, this is ridiculous. These aren't the real problems. And his diagnosis, of course, was insane. But he did recognize that like what they were saying was not really responsive to what people were feeling or thinking or even wanted to hear. And it was just so strange how with him off the stage for the first time, Trump has not been on a stage like this. And what, 6 years, 7 years, he's been that presence for that long. With him not there, they didn't know what to talk about.
Yeah,
they didn't really know how to connect. And I think it's like a demonstration of exactly how and why Trump got to where he was within the Republican Party. He kind of remains the only guy in the field with any like juice, you know.
Let's play this Nikki Haley thing, because this fits into what I wanted to talk with you about, Jamelle. Just how Vivek took the maximalist positions on all of, you know, the most brutish Republican impulses, whether it be just being incredibly, you know, saying I want Israel's border policies down at the Mexico border, or saying the climate change agenda is a hoax, right? So giving the red meat to the base, and he has the ability to do so with no real political background. It's all theater for him, and he's auditioning for, I don't know, the cable news show or VP or something like that. But the difference between what you're seeing growing within the base and the establishment Republicans and what their true agenda is really fascinating. You saw a little bit of it in the back and forth between Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley on Ukraine, with the differences between the more traditional neoconservative, pro-Pentagon kind of military-industrial complex thinking, and this libertarian leaning ideology, I guess. But also what they didn't flesh out is Nikki Haley and Chris Christie and some of the other traditional Republicans want to cut Social Security and Medicare. Is this the clip of Nikki Haley on Social Security and Medicare? Let's play this because this is just a reminder. Yeah, this is not the one. It's the other one. This is a reminder of exactly what the Republican Party agenda is when essentially Trump is out of the picture and isn't disciplining them on this issue, because he kind of cut out Republicans' legs in these latest negotiations with Biden out from under them when he said we shouldn't touch Social Security and Medicare. But this is really what they want to do.
Well, you've got multiple candidates on that stage that said they wouldn't touch entitlements, including Trump. And any candidate that says they're not going to touch entitlements means that they're basically going to go into office and then leave America bankrupt. Social Security is going to go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare is going to go bankrupt in 8. So the way we deal with it is we don't touch anyone's retirement or anyone who's been promised in, but we go to people like my kids in their 20s when they're coming into the system and we say the rules have changed. We change retirement age to reflect life expectancy. Instead of cost of living increases, we do it based on inflation. We limit the benefits on the wealthy, and we expand Medicare Advantage plans.
What's the right age there then, Ambassador?
Well, I think we have to do the numbers. We've got to figure out what it is. But what we do know is 65 is way too low, and we need to increase that. We need to do it according to life expectancy.
Yeah, as Matt says, life expectancy is going down. And also there are studies that show that the longer you work, the shorter your life expectancy can be, almost as if, having to work until your elder years is not great for your health. And just to fact check her, no, Social Security and Medicare are not going bankrupt. Yet the Social Security Trust Fund is a little bit more in like financial precarity because of Treasury bonds, but that is quite easily fixed by just raising the cap. There are a lot of things that you can do, but this is the austerity agenda of the Republican Party that is as foundational to what they believe in as anything else.
That's right. I mean, to the extent that Trump had like any innovation when he in the 2016 race, it was sort of jettisoning all of that, right? Saying to voters basically like, I know you're here for the anti-immigrant stuff. I know you're here for sort of like the meanness and everything. So I'm going to focus on that. I know you don't want to hear someone talk about taking your Medicare or Social Security. That's very unpopular. So I'm not going to do it. And that worked. And it is fascinating to see that, when he's not on the stage, they just go back to talking about it, kind of unaware that it's politically unpopular. I think in Haley's case, he's trying to present herself as sort of the only serious adult on the stage, though, as you say, they claim she's making about those programs they're going to go bankrupt in some way. Just don't really hold up to scrutiny. Like, if Social Security goes bankrupt, a program that more or less is financed by existing workers paying taxes to current beneficiaries. So if that goes bankrupt, what that means is that like society has collapsed, right?
Yes.
that's what that means.
It's self-sustaining. I mean, it's
right.
In theory, but they want to be able to cut into it and create more leverage for people to remain in the workforce. That's their agenda.
That's right. And to siphon the money into private accounts that, mutual funds and private equity can like skim off of for their own profit. So yeah, that's the agenda. It's very unpopular, and they cannot help but go back to it, which I think gets to this point of kind of just like an intellectual exhaustion among mainstream Republicans that has been papered over really by Trump's dominance of the entire Republican Party. It feels like, I'll say, it feels to some extent that all of this is like very theoretical in terms of talking, because as you said at the top, Trump leads the field by like 40 points, right? Like there's Nikki Haley, I think, is pulling 3 or 4% in the polling. Ron DeSantis, who's supposed to be like Trump's closest competitor, is polling 11, 12%. Like Trump is winning the majority of Republicans, and no one else really even comes remotely close. And so this feels all a little academic. Like at the end of the day, even if he is, faces considerably more legal trouble than he does, there's nothing that says you can't run for president and also be in court. So there's a good chance that he still gets the nomination, and it is the nominee going into next fall. And all of this is a little moot. And I think you're right that on Wednesday, everyone kind of perceived that this was like a very strange exercise in pretending as if the actual unquestioned leader of the Republican Party isn't, part of this discussion.
Yeah, and it's so clear that the Republican base, there's no appetite for cutting Social Security and Medicare, no matter how much they want to call it entitlements, no matter how much they want to obscure it. That was always all the hatred of non-white people, of gay people, of trans people, always was a way to get them to a position where they could deliver for their donors, for the people that they serve. It was cynical. Some are true believers, some aren't. I don't know how much it matters. But in the end, the Republican base really just wanted like the hatred part. And that's what Trump delivers to them. And so when the Republican Party or someone like Nikki Haley's trying to move back to like what the watered down Tea Party talking points, I mean, she seems like a dinosaur and completely disconnected from anything that regular Republicans actually want their candidate to sound like.
I think that's right. I don't put much stock into Vivek Ramaswamy's chances, but he's like the only one who seems to kind of grasp that the Republican base has kind of moved on from the 2010s and is looking for something bombastic, for something that involves like defining and targeting enemies and promising that you're going to use the government to go after them, which is basically what he did. Climate change activists are enemies. I'm going to go after them. Federal bureaucrats are enemies. I'm going to go after them, and so on and so forth. So I think that's what Republican voters want to hear, and Ramaswamy is delivering it. DeSantis is kind of delivering it, although not particularly well. But any attempt to articulate kind of a updated version of Tea Party Republicanism, circa 2012 Republicanism, kind of the kind of rhetoric that Mitt Romney ran on in that election, or that the other Republican candidates ran on in 2016. I just don't think it's going to land very well with voters or Republican voters who don't want that. And part of the problem is they don't want that. And they want a candidate who's going to deliver it to them. But most voters don't want that. Most voters don't want what Republican voters want. And so that puts the nominee in a difficult position. Just to make one quick point about that debate, it was interesting, right, that they had this whole exchange about abortion, which kind of hinged around Haley really trying to get everyone to not talk about it.
Yep.
Because she recognizes that, like, listen, this is electoral poison. But
everyone had to mansplain it to her, right? They had to mansplain why the federal abortion was needed. Or federal abortion ban, I should say.
But this is like the dilemma, right? Republican voters want to hear a nominee say, I'm going to get to Washington and I'm going to ban abortion. And most of the voting electorate hears that and they say, no, thank you. And they will vote the other way.
It was interesting. I think it was really only Pence and Asa Hutchinson who said that they would do a federal abortion ban. And the rest of them, say, well, we'll leave it to the states. But honestly, just to say to have another moment of positive feelings about like the general American population on this front, just like them having their taking their civic duty seriously when it comes to being on a jury, they understand now that I think the Republicans are lying about the states' rights thing, because Lindsey Graham did them a favor by proposing that 15-week ban basically quite quickly after Roe was overturned, much to the dismay of Mitch McConnell and others. But there's no trust there on this issue, and abortion rights are broadly popular, and we'll see what happens in Ohio in November, right, when they take that up on the ballot. But this is a really Trump is a losing issue for them if he's the candidate, obviously, and abortion is, and this is perhaps the saving grace for Biden, who in any other time would be a weak candidate, but he has great negative partisanship on his side and the twin issues of like the democracy at stake and your abortion rights at stake.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think we'll also want to look to the Virginia state elections in the fall, where the Republican governor, Glenn Youngkin, is really investing a lot in trying to flip the state house and hold the state, or flip the state Senate and hold the state house of delegates. If he can do that, then he'll have the votes to do an abortion ban. So this election in Virginia is really being fought on the question of abortion rights, although Republicans are doing as much as they can to avoid talking about it. I think if Democrats can hold the state Senate, then that will also give us a sense of where the public is in terms of, how they connect Republicans winning elections to the future of their rights.